I was in a coma for 2 weeks. And I have to tell you guys, people always laugh when I say this, but I had the best coma ever. Like I was flying. It was the best trip, honestly.
You're watching the Marketing Misfits with Norm Farrar and Kevin King.
Mr. Norm Farrar, fancy seeing you again. I think we've been both living out of a suitcase for a while.
Yeah, or I kind of felt separated, I thought we were in legal separation or something. I don't know why, but it's nice to be back in the studio.
Yeah, no, you're back at my house for like a week. We went to a conference here in Austin, and before that we were in Nashville, and before that we were, I don't know, somewhere else in Austin again.
Yep, that's right.
Like you started missing me so much. I noticed, like, when you flew back last week, on the plane, like, I felt like, I just lost my partner or something, because you're like getting on the plane, about to take off, just landed, on the way to the house, going night. So I was
having a cigar.
This is like when I used to date my ex-wife, like the little check hands. I'm like, Norm's already missing me.
Yeah, look at, I was at your house. Hey, who knows? Who knows where this will go, Kev? And look at, have you noticed?
Have I noticed?
Yeah, have you noticed? One guess.
You combed your beard.
I always comb my beard.
Well, look at,
I'm not fuzzy.
You don't have food in it anymore.
Or small children.
There's no small children. There's no goats hanging out.
No, I have not seen any of those recently. But look at.
Yeah, you got Connie must have gone to town on you.
So I don't know what episode this is, but it took this long to get that stupid fuzziness off of my background.
Yeah,
so,
you don't have the green screen halo effect. I can't call you an angel anymore.
Well, you can, if you want.
Can't call you an angel because don't have the halo effect.
Well, I am. But hey, we've got a great guest today. And you know what? I got to sit down with our guest at a Canadian e-commerce conference, which was fantastic. It was called Ecom North. And it just so happened we were able to meet up, and she told me her story. Now, if this isn't a Misfit story, I don't know what is. But I came back, I was, kind of called you right away, and I said, look, we've got to have Vandana on. And so we talked to her, she's on, she's agreed, and wait, listen to the whole podcast. Anybody who's listening, listen to the end of this podcast. You will be amazed. So without further ado, let's bring in our guest, Vandana Puranik. There, did I say it right? Did I?
Vandana. Emphasis is on the first syllable. Vandana. Just do one of these.
I have to forgive him. He's a little slow sometimes.
I've known her. How long have we known each other?
Years.
And every time, because it's like Canadians saying about. I can't hear about. It sounds like an American saying about, but everybody that I meet says, oh, about. And it's like, Vandana, and no, it's Vandana. I say, it's Vandana, and every time you say it, it's me. I apologize, and you know what? Throughout this podcast, I'm gonna say Vandana.
No, you're not. You're gonna say Vandana.
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 All right.
I don't know how many times we've gone through this.
Vandana.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just call you V.
Okay.
Or we.
Okay.
All right, Kevin.
Yes. It's good to see you, Vandana. How are you doing?
Rub it in.
Oh, my God.
We met, you came to a BDSS a while back. Is it one or two that you've been to?
Oh, I've been to
or
just
more.
Virtual, I think.
Oh, just a virtual, but you bought a ticket to the in-person, then we had to roll it over. Is that what I thought you'd been to? So you have not been to the in-person one?
I have not been to the in-person.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I'm stoked to go to Iceland. I can't wait.
Yeah, Iceland's Iceland's going to be amazing. But yeah, I know we had to roll it over. You had some things that came up, and so we had to. You weren't able to make it a couple times. I was like, damn it, Norm keeps talking about this Wandana.
No, now you're messing it up.
I know. I had to say it like Norm. So Norm
Just
talks. I had to say it like,
V.
I have a
But
lot of
no,
people that call me V.
it's good to see you and good to chat.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
So Norm was telling me that, like you just said, at Econ North, he sat down, and I know a little bit of the backstory. You shared a little bit with me on some of the stuff that you've been through, but Norm said, "Oh, this got to hear this amazing story." So fill us in. What's going on? What's happening?
Well, I am. It is quite a story, if I say so myself. But I'm a marketer and strategist by profession. So I build brands and I build businesses. That's what I do for a living. Started my career at P&G, Kellogg's, Royal Bank, which is now RBC. I was on the transition team of the branding for RBC. So that's a big one as well.
That's Royal Bank of Canada. Is that what that stands?
Royal Bank of Canada, but in the US it's known, and in Canada now, as RBC.
Okay.
And you'll hear me take a breath every now and then, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I from there, I ended up doing a lot of consulting and a lot of freelance work for a number of different companies in a number of different industries, anywhere from entrepreneurs to multi-million-dollar organizations. And I kept doing that for about 15, 20 years, and then I got bored. So, and I tend to get bored pretty quickly. It seems like I was seeing the same problems over and over again. And one of the things that really struck me as I was going through this is, number one, people's definition of success was really quite odd. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. But the other thing that I noticed is that people don't know how to think through things enough to get to a solution, or at least make options for themselves. So it was very frustrating. And this is something that I've been thinking about for years. And I thought, okay, I'm going to forge into that area. So I had the opportunity to be part of an anthology, which went on to become a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller. And I talked about the success cycle that I've developed. It's a model. And I also talked about the world of creative problem solving, because it's the one skill that we're never taught, but literally can change absolutely everything. So I talked about that as well. And then I had the opportunity to speak at Harvard and Stanford and Cambridge and Oxford and Toronto and Miami. And then in the midst of all this, I was also writing books. I've got 8 books in the works. And in the middle of all this, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'm up against breast cancer right now. But after having surgery, I just ended my treatment, actually. In terms of all the invasive portions, I've got another 5 to 7 years to go. But after going through surgery and oncotyping and chemo and everything else that goes along with it, I woke up after my last treatment 10 days after, roughly, on February 14th, so Valentine's Day. And I knew I had an infection because I had a cracked tooth. And that's a no-no when you have chemo and when you have cancer. So you got to get to the ER.
Hold it. So can you explain that? I don't get it.
Yeah. So when you have a cracked tooth, you meaning how that's related?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because what happens is there's an infection. If it's cracked and, you get an infection, it goes up into your gums, right? And you're in agony, like your tooth is just in agony. And so I knew that I was coming down with an infection, and any kind of an infection was not an option. So I went to the ER, celebrated our 36th wedding anniversary that night in the ER overnight. And I know you're probably thinking like, wow, 36 years. I got married when I was 12.
It's an Indian thing, right?
It's an Indian. I was just going to say, it's part of our culture. We were betrothed to each other. Anyway, no, not really. I better clarify that. It's like, no, not really. I'm going to start a TikTok channel that's called that, by the way. No, not really.
12 and married.
Yeah. Yeah, that's even better. But I ended up in the ER. I was triaged, went through the whole sort of discussion about what I could have, and immediately out of nowhere, like honestly, like grease lightning, everything just started to happen. It was like they checked my vitals, which is normal. I was undressed, I was put in a gown, I was, everything. They started giving me oxygen, they started giving me IVs, antibiotics, as well as fluids, and I was like, wow, that's really good. Like, that they're moving pretty fast. But then they put this mask on me and for oxygen, and it was too tight and it freaked me out. So I threw it off. And after that, I don't remember anything. And so all I have now is the stories and the messages that have come my way, especially the texts that my husband sent every day, twice a day to everyone. So I haven't even read through those yet because I'm still mentally preparing for that. But what happened was I got worse, and they didn't know what it was, which happens in a lot of respiratory illness cases. Most of them we don't know what they are, but we know how to control them. And they learned a lot during COVID, which I'm thankful for. And I ended up in a coma. So I was
from a toothache to a coma.
The tooth. Thank God I had that, because I was having a really hard time breathing. And
before the tooth,
but it was even like it just kept getting progressively worse. But because I hadn't been through chemo before, I didn't know what was, normal and what was not. I just thought, oh, this is just, part of chemo. I'm just going to have a hard time breathing, not even, and I'm not I don't complain about anything. So it's one of those things where I was okay, you just have to live through it. And I had finished my last chemo, 10 days before I went to the hospital. So I was thinking, okay, I just have to ride this out for another couple of weeks and then I'm done. Like, it's going to be magical. So I really wasn't expecting to be in the hospital at all. But because I had my tooth infection, it pushed me to go to the hospital, because if I hadn't gone, I probably wouldn't be here today. Let's just put it that way. So
when the mask came off,
yeah,
there was a time period before they put you into the coma, or was it at that point?
No, there was a time period, but I don't remember anything. I had tons of visitors. Don't remember those. Don't know eating, drinking, nothing. I remember nothing, but I was getting worse. So they clearly weren't going to let me go. And I was in a fantastic hospital in Toronto. And so I was in a coma for 2 weeks. And I have to tell you guys, people always laugh when I say this, but I had the best coma ever. I was flying. It was the best trip, honestly. I was flying through galaxies and realms and different dimensions. And, there were a lot of messages, interestingly enough, that kind of came through that you download that you don't realize at the time. But one of them was, man, I thought I was thinking big. I got to think like way bigger. I got to think way beyond where I am today and where I was thinking. Like the opportunity to go big is sitting right in front of you. So that was one of the lessons. Also learned that all we have is now,
Sounds like you were traveling with Jerry Garcia and Timothy Leary.
Yeah.
There's probably some good drugs in there.
Yeah, well, I was on drugs. I was on barbiturates. So, me and all the neighborhood local drug addicts were hanging out at the hospital. But I had the best time, and it was very confusing coming out of the coma, because I was like, wait, that's it? I want to go back in my coma.
What did it end up being, a respiratory infection, or what did it end up being?
I ended up getting something called ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome. Doesn't have a really great survival rate. And plus I had cancer, plus I had chemo, plus I had an infection. So everybody, first of all, I fell off the face of the earth. Nobody heard from me. So everybody was freaking out, trying to figure out what was going on. And then it's one of those things where everybody was thinking that this is it. It's not looking good. So really happy to be here.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor, Lavanta. Hey, Kevin, tell us a little bit about it.
That's right, Amazon sellers. Do you want to skyrocket your sales and boost your organic rankings? Meet Levanta, Norm and I's secret weapon for driving high-quality external traffic straight to our Amazon storefronts using affiliate marketing. That's right. It's achieved through direct partnerships with leading media outlets like CNN, Wirecutter, and BuzzFeed, just to name a few, as well as top affiliates, influencers, bloggers, and media buyers, all in Levanta's marketplace, which is home to over 5,000 different creators that you get to choose from.
So are you ready to elevate your business? Visit get.levanta.io/misfits. That's get.levanta, LEVANTA.io/misfits, and book a call, and you'll get up to 20% off Levanta's gold plan today. That's get.levanta.io/misfits.
Moving on, 3 days after I was in the coma for 2 weeks, and I was very close to having a tracheotomy, but I didn't want to have a trach. Well, it's not that I was making a choice; I wasn't even awake. But my husband was, let's try to keep out of that if we can. And so I last day, my very last day, I ended up passing a breathing test that allowed me to come out and not have a trach. And I was in the hospital for 2 months. Came out in April. 3 days after I came out, I did a TEDx talk. And note to self: do not do a TEDx talk when you can't really breathe properly. So I have to tell you, I'm giving the editor a run for his money. I'm telling you. But then I came out, and then one of the things I've been working on is building women and the strength of women. We're in the age of Aquarius. I don't know if you believe in all this metaphysical stuff, spiritual stuff, but and from the looks on your faces, it doesn't sound like it. But we're in the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
And we're in a situation where the next 20 years are going to be the years of the woman. So I wanted to, starting in 2024. So I very much wanted to launch my idea for women. So now I've launched something called What She Said, which is a posse of bad bitches doing great things. And that site just went live actually. This is whatshesaid.com. And it really is about lifting, catapulting the business that the woman is in. So it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're a corporate person, or if you have a philanthropy, or if you're a team coach, or, whatever it is, sports, doesn't matter, artist. It's about whatever, lifting whatever business you're in, but lifting the woman behind the business as well. So, and there's some really cool ways, and it's not that men can't join. Men can join because, quite frankly, this is their target group as well, right? But the idea, we're really flipping the script on how we grow businesses, and haven't seen this ever done before. So I'm kind of excited about that. And what we're essentially doing is, we're offering a lot, but we're flipping the script in a way that, instead of being concerned about yourself and only yourself and trying to grow your business and just, how can I expand? How can I get more income? How can I get more clients? Whatever it is, you become, instead of self-absorbed, you become absorbed in other people's businesses. And so we're building these mini boards of directors, and those boards are responsible for growing your business. So all of a sudden you have all these creative ideas, all these, people with different kinds of expertise, people who, we're looking for honesty. We're not looking for lip service. Tell me the honest to goodness truth, but be nice about it too. Looking for visibility, looking for people to, be part of this sisterhood that, where we've got each other's back. Like, so these are important things that are happening. And there's a lot of stats about women, but the reason I'm doing this, I feel like I'm talking for a while. Should I just keep going?
Sure.
Yeah, keep
I
going.
just
I just want to ask you a question about these board of directors or advisors.
yeah.
Are you taking that role from EO or YPO where they have the forms?
It's funny. I've been asked this question before, and it is kind of like YPO. So you're right, but um, the difference will be in how we um, execute it. So that'll be a little bit different.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, the idea is it's not like a mastermind. So in a mastermind, we all get together, we solve each other's issues, and try to move forward, right? You will actually be responsible for improving someone else's business, for growing someone else's business. So there will be sort of, I
So
don't
it's
want to call them.
like a mentorship, like
It is like a mentorship, but let's say, okay, let's say for example, I'm really good at branding. Like that's one thing I'm really good at. I mean, I've done it my whole life. So we're forming lists of who's good at what and who needs what, right? That's pretty basic. Um, but let's say I'm known to be good at branding, so I have the option of joining any of these groups or being called to any of these groups and being asked to build brands or the brand strategy. And so I will work with a person to build a very, very strong brand strategy. And there is a science to it, just so you know. Um, so how do we go about that, and what do we need, and what are they supposed to do? So having our own critical path for our area that is going to help you build your brand, as an example. Somebody else may be really an expert in manufacturing. Somebody else may be an expert in finance. But together, we're going to build these groups of people who are going to help you in each category and form a critical path. And then the person whose business it is going to be responsible for making sure they all work together at the right time. So, going to be teaching about that.
So
And
it
so
sounds like it's an inventory of skills. So you're taking inventory of
definitely an
skills.
inventory of skills.
Yeah.
But it's really about it's not enough to suggest. You have to do it with the person, because one of the biggest frustrating things is that when you go from corporate and you come into entrepreneurship, guess what? You don't know everything. There's nobody telling you what to do anymore, and you have no expertise in all these different areas, and you don't know where to go. So it gets scary, it gets lonely, it gets depressing at times. And so this is a place where you can go and you're going to get results. Because
so
to
what
me,
is
it's all
it?
about results.
So what is it that makes it different for women in business than men in business? I know it's been a male dominated, but coming from a man's point of view, it's a lot of men at the top, a lot of men are CEOs, and there's these glass ceilings and all these other things where it's been a struggle for
Mhm.
women. But what is it that it's going to differentiate? I mean, there's a lot of women's groups out there. There's a lot of different
Yeah,
women's organizations where they
yeah,
empower each other, and it's all women power and boss power.
yeah.
What's are you? What's the ad? I know you said the accountability and like you're responsible for someone, but what's the true differentiating factor from a marketing point of view? What's your USP on this? What's your unique thing? And why is this important for women? You really see this in men. I mean, maybe they call it something different, men's groups or the cigar club or something, but what is it about forming these groups, and why do women need this? Why do they want this? Try to help us understand this so we can empathize, or the mental side behind it, because you hear this a lot, and there's a lot of guys that they just don't get it.
So I'm going to answer that two ways, maybe even three. The whole premise is getting results. So we're not a networking group. We're a group about getting results, and many, many, many. I don't know of a lot of women's groups at all who are focused on getting results. And
So it's
so
just more about bonding and camaraderie and
that's
stuff,
right.
rather than
And
actually
this is not about that.
sharing each other's pains and crying and commiserating with each other, rather than actually getting results. So that's what you're like, results oriented.
I'm totally results oriented.
Okay.
So if we're not getting results, if we're not helping you grow, then there's something wrong, and we have to pivot.
And
And
I guess you're doing part of this is accountability on the person, right? You've got this board of directors. If they're giving you information, providing you this information, you're accountable at doing this. Is that correct?
Yeah, but the problem is that, and this happens in a lot of coaching circles as well, where you're told what to do, but you never actually do it because they say, okay, here's all the information, now go do it. And you never go do it. I don't know how many thousands of dollars, millions and millions of dollars have been spent by people individually on the coaching circuit.
Right.
And that's the one, that's the one frustration that I had. So these groups will be oriented about doing stuff on the spot. Like, we're going to do it right now. We're not going to dilly dally around. So it might be, a full day that we get together and we work through all these issues. We figure out what it is that you need to do, because even I can do that from a strategic standpoint pretty quickly. And then, or what information you need. And then you go and you actually do it while you're in the room. So it's not good. It's not good enough to teach someone, because that's not the way you get results.
I mean, it just happened. I mean, that's a perfect example of that. Norm and I are working on a new venture right now, and we've been getting together quite a bit. I went up to his house, spent a weekend. He's down here in Austin a couple of times. We got together some other things. And sometimes we're sitting there brainstorming for 6-8 hours, discussing what we're going to do. And it's like, oh, you should do this. And it's like, all right, I'll do it right now. It's like, no, just put it on your list to do. We need to take more advantage of the time. It's like, no, if we don't do, this is important. If we don't make this step right now and do it right now, it's not going to get done. And sometimes it's a small thing and it could have potentially waited. But other times it's like, no, because we did that, the next 2 hours actually changed.
He's trying to put that in the back of he's trying to put a message in my head, right? Right, Kevin?
Am I? I don't know. No, it's a lot of times it's me. It's like, if you want this to be, because I'm super busy. I'm like, if this needs to get done, I got to do it right now. Otherwise it's going to get pushed. And it's the implementation. It's like when you go to an event. Yeah. We just went to events and we got tons of notes and tons of things. And it's like, all right, which are the 2 things or 3 things that we're going to implement off of this? And the rest of it's all cool and sounds great, but it's just, you can't do it all. And a lot of times what happens is people don't do anything. They learn and like, that was good, great advice, awesome event that one did not put on, but nothing happens. So that's cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the frustrations that I've had that have driven me too, right? So I don't want to spend another cent on another coaching course or another coach without knowing exactly what I have to do and doing it on the spot. You have to just do it right there. I remember back in 2007 when I was like 3.
Before you got married. Before I
got married. I went to a course in Utah because a lot of web development happens in Utah. Anyway, so I went to a course and I was petrified because I knew nothing about the internet at that point, really. I mean, other than to surf. And it was the best course I ever took, and it was simple. It was clear, at least for me it was. And we did everything right on the spot. So I walked out of there with something I had that was tangible, that was, operable. And it was the most rewarding feeling. I told you I'd tell you 3 things. The second thing is that when our kids were young, our first 2 kids, our son, they were 6 and 7. They were really young. Our son was having some behavioral issues going to school. And his teacher, who was a teaching veteran of 31 years, had said, you got to get him out of here. So he was 6 and math was a high school level and reading comprehension was university level. It was crazy. But people would look at him weird. They wouldn't want to befriend him. He wouldn't want to go back to school when he came home for lunch, all kinds of stuff. So we knew we had to do something. Hired a psychologist. We thought, the 2 kids are really similar. Let's just find out what the situation is. And I didn't really care what the results said, other than enabling us to get the right kind of help for him. So we threw our daughter in there too. And he comes back, and the psychologist comes back, very, very well-known psychologist, comes back and he says, I can count on one hand kids as bright as yours. And we honestly thought he looked at the wrong results, because it was just so hard to believe because they were so similar, right? We didn't know any different. And anyway, so he said, what are you going to do for your son? It's like, oh my God, this is great. finally have a documentation that we can take and, take them and get him fast tracked into whatever program is right for him, because that's what the school board needed. And he said, what are you going to do for your daughter? I was like, you know what? She is so happy. She makes happiness. She's all smiles. She's doing extremely well in school. She's got tons of friends. She finds a way to make things work. She's always looking for solutions. So I said, why try to fix something that ain't broke? And he said to us, and I honestly felt like a slap in the face. It's like, that is exactly why you need to push for her, because this is what happens to women all the time. They get in a situation where nobody pushes for them, and they don't advance as quickly as they should or as far as they can. And so that to me was, something has to be done for women. And I'm not like some super huge feminist or anything like that. I want you to know that I really like men. Okay? That's not an issue. but for me, it was just a big realization. And the third thing is that I teach about solving for the impossible. So when you have an impossible problem, come to me, because I will show you how to do it. And when I spoke at TED, one of the things that I did was use my own case as a case study for using it as an example for the principles that I teach. And I taught about 3 different principles. Number 1 is solving for the outcome, not the problem. The whole story behind that. Number 2, suspend yourself in a state of curiosity. There's a reason for that. And the third thing I talked about was intellectual humility, because we learn a lot through each of those 3 things. But that's just the beginning. So the book that I'm writing, which is called Might, hopefully out soon, has a double entendre: power of the mind and, possibility. Might, how might we solve this? And it talks about the different steps that you can take to find where you need to go. But the most amazing thing about it is that it creates options. And I think a lot of people, especially women, get into this thing where it's like, okay, now what? Kind of been there, done that. I've kind of done this career. I'm kind of tired of it. Now what? They don't make options. They don't create options for themselves. And so what I'm really interested in doing is working with women who are ambitious, audacious entrepreneurs, or I wouldn't even say entrepreneurs. I don't think it's a fair statement. Ambitious, audacious women who are nonconformists, who are curious and they're creative and they're builders and they're progressive and they're, declaring independence from the status quo, and they want that camaraderie and that sisterhood. And someone that has their back and is going to be honest. I actually interviewed about 200 women very recently, and I took a look at what they were looking for and built the whole program about what she said around that. So, it's not something that was just coming through in my head. It's based on my experience, the interviews, and what I thought was achievable, that I could hang my hat on.
Now, are you setting this up? Is it an event that people are coming to? Is it local chapters?
We just had a launch event just here locally in Toronto. I had rented out the whole restaurant. We had about 85 women, and we had to handpick because there was just not enough space otherwise. And this
it's like $250 or something to join, right?
Yeah, it's $250 to join, which is like,
I'm looking at the site right now.
Oh, are you? Yeah, and it's like $50. It's $50 a month or $500 a year to be part of it. $250 is just registration. And I wanted to keep it pretty cheap because, first of all, it's a founder's launch, so it'll be cheap until mid-December, and that'll be it. But I'm closing it. And I don't want money to ever be a factor as to why you can't be part of something like this. So I wanted to make it pretty affordable and accessible.
Something interesting you said earlier, though, that kind of ties into all this is you're developing outcomes for people. Like you just said, people.
Yeah.
When the people dive wrong into a problem and they like, well,
that's right.
We're suppressed because we're women, or we don't have the opportunities, or we don't have this, and we have to raise the kids and balance this and balance of life and all this, and they come up with all these excuses, and it's not just women, it's men, it's across everything. Instead of actually like, what is the outcome you want, and how do you solve for that outcome? And you just get lost, you get so overwhelmed and so just buried in life is not fair to me, or whatever, however you want to call it.
Yeah. Well,
Instead, like, what is the outcome I want, and what do I need to achieve? I mean, it's just like in business. Norm and I mean, here's a perfect example. We're working on this big project that's like 5 businesses in one that we'll be announcing soon. And we got all excited with all the marketing and all the little pieces, and like, okay, this one's going to do this, and this one's going to do this, and we need to hire this people. And then we sat down with someone last week, and they're like, well, what's your goal here? What's your end goal? And we're like, well, it's to exit it for $100 million in 3 to 5 years. That's the goal. And we're like, who's going to buy that? And like, well, they asked some questions where we couldn't answer those questions. And like, well, what are your sales to be to achieve this? And so we actually like, wait a second, we're approaching this. I told Norm, it's like, whatever we need to talk about today, we need to shift it, because we need to sit down and spend the next 6 hours actually doing the numbers, guesstimating the numbers. What is it to have $100 million exit? That's about a $10 million bottom line at a 10x, roughly in this space, and 10 to 15, somewhere in that range. What do we have to do that? And which is all these great ideas that we have, what are they actually going to make in money? And so we sat down and spent like 6 hours going through every one of these little things, line by line. Some of it's guesswork. We're just guessing. But at the end of the day, we're like, all right, we have a concrete, now we know the path to the outcome. We know which ones of these to focus on, which ones can be a little bit secondary, instead of just like having this cool big idea. And that outcome approach, but I think that's kind of similar to what you're saying, is what a lot of people miss. They do forecasting or they do this, but it's not with, this is the goal. What we're creating, will it achieve that goal? And what do we need to shift to do that?
And by the way,
even came back, it's like, okay, Kevin, these numbers are awesome. Now let's go through and cut everything. What'd you say? Like 75%, 50 to 75%?
I said, let's do another version at 50%. And you could even go back and do another 25% to be very conservative. But what shocked me doing this is the outcome. There was 2 specific out of these 5 groups that we're working with. The one was unbelievable. We had no idea the power of this one group, this one division of the company. And we thought we knew, but at the end of the day, we're looking at it going, this is the one we should be focusing on. And again, it's something you should be doing in business anyways, whether you're doing a marketing strategy, sales strategy, whatever type of strategy, you got to know your numbers. You got to put together a business plan. But just by laying that out, I thought I knew.
The outcome in mind, the end goal in mind, and working it backwards.
Yeah.
See,
that's what a lot of people, they don't do that in marketing.
No, I mean, they don't.
I'm teaching now. It's a presentation. I did it a month ago at Accelerate, and I'm doing it again in Singapore. And I'm doing a webinar on it December 11th, actually, on the psychology of marketing. And it's about how you should actually, what I'm telling is in this Amazon space that Norm and I come from, most people look for opportunities for a product. They find a product, they source it, and then they sell it, and then they figure out how to market it. I'm saying, no, that's backwards. Actually do the ad first and then find the product. And so that's a whole different approach. And that's something that a lot of people, it's opened some eyes, and I show a bunch of examples and some videos and stuff, and people are like, oh, wow, this is totally different way of thinking. It's like, this is how you have to think.
Yeah.
And it's so many people are teaching it the wrong way or doing it the backwards way.
Yep. So it sounds very similar. I mean, to me, the one big mental shift that happens when you solve for the outcome versus the problem is when you're solving a problem, you're in victim mode. When you're solving for an outcome.
I was saying earlier, like it's the examples of the excuses I was giving earlier. Yeah, that's
right. You become a victim. Whereas when you're working on the outcome, you're in the driver's seat.
And so, how do you get people to shift when you teach that, when you do your think influencing and stuff? And you get that? How do you shift that mindset among your clients and your students, and when you're talking to people?
In all honesty, it's repetition. It sounds crazy, but it's just because so many people constantly say, okay, so, but then this happens. It's like, okay, but that's not the problem. That's not,
Keep reverting
that's,
back.
yeah. And what happens is if we set up, and this is why I want to do stuff while I teach it, because I don't think it's good enough to teach. Although I'd really love to come to your webinar, Kevin, because I think it's fascinating.
You're welcome to.
Yeah, I'd love that. First time hearing about it, so otherwise I would have signed up sooner, perhaps.
No, it's not until December. I haven't even announced it yet, so you can't even sign up yet.
Okay, good.
I tried. He wouldn't let me.
Yeah, Norm's right.
Well, but that's understandable.
I want Norm to copy me.
Yeah, please do not.
All right, Vandana. And I said that intentionally, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Norm's actually seen it, so he's seen a rough go through of it.
Now, nice.
It has Norm's stamp of approval.
All right. Well, what I was going to say is that when you're solving for a problem, oftentimes what happens is you become problem centric. So, and that's basically, like you have a cognitive block, because any new information that comes in is, yeah, but that's not going to solve the problem. That's not what I'm working on. But when you solve for the outcome, all of a sudden you change the way the game is being played.
And now a word from one of our sponsors, one of Norm and I's favorite tools, Stack Influence.
Are you looking to quickly boost new Amazon product launches or scale up existing listings to reach first page positioning? The influencer platform Stack Influence can help. Stack Influence pushes high volume external traffic sales to Amazon listings using micro-influencers. And guess what? You only have to pay with your products. They've helped up-and-coming brands like Magic Spoon compete with Cheerios for top category positioning, while also helping Fortune 500 brands like Unilever launch their new products. Right now is the best time to get started with Stack Influence to crush it during this holiday season.
That's right, Norm. Sign up today at stackinfluence.com or click the link in the video below and mention Misfits. That's right, Misfits, MISFITS, to get 10% off your first campaign. Head over to stackinfluence.com right now.
It could be actions that you need to take. It could be information that you need. It could be problems that you need to solve. It could be people that you need to get involved. Like it takes you down, a path of questions that you may never have asked yourself. And this happens to entrepreneurs a lot. And this is why the way I build my business is the opposite of the way I think traditional entrepreneurs do. I don't know, but, and to me, it doesn't really bother me. I think there's a lot I've learned from other entrepreneurs, but one thing I strongly believe in is, what are you trying to achieve at the end? Like, what does it actually look like? Draw a picture, figure it out, figure out the numbers. Like, what does it really actually look like? And then solve for it backwards, in terms of what it is that you need to do. And there's a whole path that I have, but I just that's just one of the big things. And curiosity is a big one. It's one of the things that drives my success cycle, the model that I've developed. And the third thing was intellectual humility, which is incredible, because, the Dunning-Kruger effect is when you think you know more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want people like that. We want people who are open-minded. You want people to come to the table where they're so I'm going to get into a little bit of science here, but the thing is that there's really two kinds of intelligence. People think there's IQ and EQ, and that's not what it is. So there's fluid and there's crystallized. I did a post on this on LinkedIn, actually. The best way to look at it is fluid is what you're born with, which maxes around the age of 2021. And crystallized is what you do with it. That's the best way to look at it. But you're born with a certain innate ability, capability to do things, but it's everything that happens in your world that enables you to take that information and leverage it. So if you talk to people who are
up until about 20 or 21, that's the foundational, and then whatever your experiences and whatever you did, If you sow lemonade on the side of the road, that's going to influence how you're an entrepreneur when you're 30 or whatever. For
Right.
example.
And this is all just part of neuroscience. It's not,
Yeah.
I'm not making this up. There are studies done on it, and they're pretty recent studies. So like from the 60s and 70s. But it's just a different way of thinking of intelligence, because everybody can be intelligent. Like everybody can be as intelligent as they want to be. It's just a lot of times people say, okay, I have this IQ, or, I'm not good at math, or, I don't know what strategy means, and then it stops us. And instead, if you use the experiences that you've had, so similarly, if you have somebody in your group that is not cognitively rigid, if they are looking for an outcome, if they are curious, if they do have intellectual humility, then you know that they're going to take whatever they're hearing and cross-pollinate. They're going to take whatever they see as like, gleaming sort of little insights that come to their mind. And they're going to say, have you thought about this? This is what happened during my Coma stint. I had a group of 10 specialists from all over the world. And because of that one thing, I'm alive today. Like, it's just weird to think that, 6 months ago I was in a coma, and here I am. Like, that could have gone either way. So here I am.
So the curiosity side of that fascinates me, because can you teach curiosity? Because curiosity is like, I'm one of these guys, like I'll be watching TV and I just want to know how does something silly that how does FedEx actually, how does their hub work? How do they unload these planes in Memphis? How these planes, I want to know, like, and it has no impact on my business really. And like, it's not going to make me any money, but how do they all land between 11 and 2 and offload and reload, and what's the conveyor belt look like? And I'm just curious. And I do that on tons and tons of things. And it's the same thing with in our space and e-com and events. So many people, they get in these fish bowls. Like, you're an Amazon seller, so they only go to Amazon events or only focus on Amazon, or they're only email marketers, so they only go to email marketing type of things, or they're only webinar people. But the best value I get is when I get outside of this. Norm and I just went to a show called DealCon, and it's all range of people. We went to a podcast show, we went to a YouTube show, we went to a scale show. None of these have anything to do really with Amazon. But a lot of the stuff that we applied there, we learned, we're like, this is cool. This can be, now when we're talking, we can apply this discipline or this thing to what we do, and it can blow it up. And we get this whole different perspectives that most people don't get and aren't willing to get or spend the time to get.
Very, very smart. Very
people
smart.
Ask me all the time, like, how do you stay on the top of things? How do you always, we were at CMS, our train thing, and at the last day, people were going around the table saying positive things like, what do you think about this person? What's their skill set? What's their superpower? And a lot of people were like, one of them that came up with me like 3 or 4 times, on people was like, you're always a trailblazer, and on the cutting edge of things. And like, how do I do that? It's because I have curiosity, and because I experience all these different things, and I bring them cross-modal, however you would say that, across platform, I mix wine and beer, or whatever.
Chocolate and peanut butter.
Exactly. And that's what so many people in business and in marketing don't do. And they don't have empathy for their audience. They don't have empathy for the people. They're just trying to sell. And so how do you, when these 3 pillars are awesome, but what do you do to help foster curiosity? I mean, you can foster creativity for that matter. How do you foster that? Or how do you help people do that aren't innate, didn't come with them when they were born?
There's a few strategies you can use, but the simplest one is brainstorming. So getting used to brainstorming for somebody else's problem, or somebody else's goal, or somebody else's
not your own, but helping.
Not your own.
So you get benefit by helping others.
Yeah.
What you're saying. So like this makes sense. No wonder. Like, I just did a think tank in Austin. Norm was part of this about a month ago. This is not a mastermind. This is not a conference. But we had 12 people come in and sit on a hot seat, and for 2 to 2.5 hours, one business person, I would curate 8 different experts based on their pain points and their needs.
Mm-hmm.
2 to 2.5 hours, we worked on their specific problem. But what happened out of it is a lot of the experts said they got as much, if not more, than the expert person sitting in the hot seat. And I was worried at the beginning because some of the experts were on 3 or 4 or 5 panels. I'm like, I can't work them to death. They need to go relax and do their things. But several of them were coming up to put me on another one, put me on another one, put me on another one. I want to do
Love it.
another one.
Love
And
it.
they because they were getting exactly what you just said. It was sparking them.
Yeah, it's exactly what happens.
By giving to others, you help yourself.
That's right. Well, I mean, that's the premise of a mastermind too, right? So it's the idea is we help solve each other's problems, but hopefully what we see as things are, moving along is that, hey, I'm going to learn something and I can use it. Now, it's never talked about that way in terms of the whole cross-pollination idea, but it's definitely a big idea in terms of what I'm doing with this women's group.
But that's got to be in you, doesn't it? Like when I was growing up, smartest guy I knew, most creative guy I knew, ended up working at Seagram's as a tow truck driver. Nothing against that, but that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to make his money. He wanted to get his 20 years in.
Yep.
He retired. He started his own company after that, and he could not care less. But he was the brightest. I know that he has a couple of patents, but he didn't do anything with them. He was just had no curiosity about trying to develop it. Although he could have been an incredible entrepreneur.
It's interesting because not everybody is inclined the same way, right? So somebody can be super intelligent, but just may not want to use it. Or develop it.
He dropped out of school too because he was so bored.
Not challenged.
Yeah, I was bored too. Like I remember, and that's why I quit the whole consulting and freelancing. And it's like I was making great money, but it's like it's not really doing anything for me at this point. But a few years ago, I decided to completely change the way my mind works, in the sense that I was going to really ramp up and treat everything with curiosity. And here's why. Number one, when you're curious about whatever it is, and if you approach any situation that way, you never get bored because you work on stuff that you're really curious about, or you're really curious about how to help someone else. So you get rid of boredom. The second thing is that when you're curious, nothing bothers you. Because let's say you're in a conflict with someone, right? And totally opposite sides, they're really angry, they come at you saying, you got to do it this way. And if you just approach it with curiosity, it's like, you know what, that's a really good point. I didn't think of that. What makes you say that? And it totally changes the way your rapport, your negotiation with that person goes. So that's a huge deal. Is curiosity changes that. It changes, the idea of just being positive all the time. I'm a super positive person. I thought I was before this, but now it's like I have nothing but positive energy in me, and I won't associate with negative people. It's not that if somebody has an issue, I won't, like, obviously I'm going to help them. But if they live in a victim mentality, that's just not where I'm going to be, and that's not where I want any of my people to be. So it's so funny because in the book I talk about a few different things. I talk about, if you're solving, first of all, what motivated me to write this thing was people are brilliantly solving the wrong problem all the time, and it drove me crazy. So how do we stop that? Because if we were not doing that, imagine what a different place we'd be in, right? But you go down this path and you're just doing, one path and then that's it, but may not even be the right path. How do you know it's the right problem? Who told you? What data do you have to support that?
Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, I'll give you a funny example. So there was a factory that was producing, let's call it toothpaste. Tell me if you've heard this before, this example. So the problem is when the toothpaste cases, the cases like boxes of 12 or 24 or whatever they packed them in, were getting to the retail level, many of the boxes were empty. And they couldn't figure that out. So they were saying, okay, we've got to stop this. It's a loss of revenue. It's creating a lot of issues. This is not the way to do business, so we've got to solve it. So what they did is they focused on only one way of dealing with the issue. And so they looked at the lines, they said, why is this happening? Manufacturing lines. And it turns out that, there was a problem with the manufacturing line, but nothing significant. Yet they spend millions of dollars on getting that fixed. And guess what? Nothing changed. So then one day, one of the supervisors is walking along because they finally ended up in a situation where the cartons were no longer empty. And so the supervisor goes over to one of his guys who's just chilling, in the back. It's a hot day, chilling in the back. And he's like, how are we doing this? Like, how come there's no empty boxes anymore? It's like, oh, I just turned the fan on and then all the empty boxes fly off. So all you have is full boxes actually going into the cases. So it's like such a small thing, right? Like it was such a basic, like we don't even look at like that kind of stuff. Instead, we look at the big, this is a major problem and loss of realization and, how are we going to get the money back and how are we going to, save face? It's like, it's just not even about that really, and so it's one of those situations where the simplest things are really what tell the story and that you can do.
Hey, Kevin King and Norm Farrar here. If you've been enjoying this episode of Marketing Misfits, thanks for listening this far. Continue listening. We've got some more valuable stuff coming up. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast player, or if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, make sure you subscribe to our channel because you don't want to miss a single episode of the Marketing Misfits. Have you subscribed yet, Norm?
Well, this is an old guy alert. Should I subscribe to my own podcast?
Yeah, but what if you forget to show up one time and it's just me on here? You're not going to know what I say.
I'll buy you a beard and you can sit in my chair too. And you can go back and forth with one another. Yikes! But that being said, don't forget to subscribe, share it. Oh, and if you really like this content, somewhere up there's a banner. Click on it and you'll go to another episode of the Marketing Misfits.
Make sure you don't miss a single episode because you don't want to be like Norm.
Oh.
Do you guys know one of my favorite stories, and I love military stories, is about Abraham Wald. Have you guys heard of Abraham Wald?
No.
Okay. So you can look up the story at any point in time, but he was so in the U.S. in World War II in New York, they had the strategic alliance group, but somehow that sounds a little bit off. And these were like the brainiest people that you would ever meet, but the most incredible thinkers as well. So Abraham Wald, who had been born in Austria, came over to California, and then ended up in Colombia, was one of these people. And he was like just one of those super smart guys. And like, this is where a lot of the like heads of MIT and, Harvard and, Caltech, like, all those people. Anyway, they had a problem in that a lot of the planes that were coming back from war were getting hit all over the nose. They came back with a ton of holes in the nose. And they said, okay, we have to solve this. Like, what are we going to do? The problem is that if you cover the nose, it changes the balance of the plane. If you add too much protection equipment, it makes the plane heavy and less agile. And not only that, but it adds costs. And so, there's a balance between all of that. So they go to the research team says, okay, you know what? Well, the best thing we can do is cover their noses because they're coming back with so many bullet holes in them that we have to find a way to protect that. So they go to Abraham Wald and they say, this is our solution. Do you approve, or what do you think of this, or do you have anything to add? And he's like, we should be thinking about, covering the noses. And he's like, no, you shouldn't. Because you have to look at what's not coming back. So the noses can handle it all, but the fuselage cannot. Mm-hmm. The body of the plane cannot. So it's just about looking at what you don't see as well. And, there's a lot of these kinds of techniques that I talk about, but just so smart, right? And even if you're looking at like Moneyball, for example, they're talking about, how do you solve, you guys do baseball or anything?
Yeah, baseball. Yeah.
Okay.
Now you have analytics in NFL, all the analytics and everything that's kind of like based on the Moneyball principles.
Yeah. So exactly. And, when Billy Beane was in there, he was saying like, it's not about what you see readily. It's the fact that we have to do a better job of hiring who we need without having money be a factor. So there's a whole dialogue in the movie which talks about that and talks about that is not the problem. No, that is not the problem. This is the problem. The problem is we have a fixed budget. We're not signing one star player and then, the rest of the team takes a nosedive. We have to find a way to make this work with the money that we've got. And so they focused on that as the problem instead of what they originally thought. So the outcome that they wanted was still the same, but there were different approaches to it. So you're always going to get that too, right? Like when you're solving for the outcome, there's a number of routes that you could take. And there's reasons why you would or would not take them. But
so we're coming close to the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
And I've got one question. I don't know, Kev, if you have any, but how do you get your head around 8 books? How do you write 8 books at a time?
Okay, so I have to tell you, I love the idea of writing. I loved the idea of writing, and I still do. But I was like, I'm so not getting involved in the publishing industry. I so have no interest in that whatsoever. And then I started writing, and it was like, wow, this is really awesome. I gotta help people with this. I gotta make a difference. So that's Might. The second book is on the fascinating histories of Hollywood. And it has nothing to do with the first book.
It's a curiosity thing.
It's a curiosity thing. So here's I just have to tell you the story because it's really cool. So there's a guy by the name of Louis Leprince, who's a Frenchman. He's in New York. He's trying to get a patent for what he has developed as the kinetoscope, which later became the motion picture camera. So he goes to get the patent, doesn't get it, goes back to France, says he's going to work on it a little bit more, works on it for a couple of years, shows his friends and family, gets on a train. He said, I'm going to go back for the patent. So gets on a train from his little small town, on a train and going to Paris, and is never heard from or seen again. Immediately after that, Thomas Edison starts patenting everything. So, okay. But the kids get wind of all of this and they say, like, well, hang on a second. Our father is the one who developed this. He deserves some credit. You gotta make good on that. So the case goes to court. And the day before Adolf, his son, is going to testify, he's killed. And so Louis Leprince's family never got anything. It all went to Thomas Edison. Oh. So it's about stories like that are just so curious, that you just want to find out more. So it's a lot of stuff that you would not expect in the book.
Universal Pictures?
Yeah.
I'm just this is just another rabbit hole. How did it get its name?
I have no idea. No.
Couldn't figure it out. They were sitting in their office and there was a plumbing truck outside the movie studio called Universal.
Yeah.
And that was the name. That's what they did to get the name of their movie studio.
Oh, I love it. There's so many stories like that, Norm, in terms of, hey, just, we saw it on the outside of a building. There was a band like that. I've actually had bands. So my company is Active Ingredients Inc. And I've had so many bands ask me if they could buy my name. But it's like, you just don't know where the great idea is going to come from, right? But I was just reading about a band who did the same thing, and that's why they named themselves the way they did. I have to find out who that is now. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so and the next 3 books are a trilogy. It's about a grandmother and a granddaughter escaping evil, and they are while they're escaping, the grandmother is teaching the granddaughter all these stories that will save her, but she's teaching them at the opportune time. And these are stories of really strong women and what they did in those similar situations. So it's kind of a cool trilogy. And then the next 3 are a cozy mystery series. But I'm kind of you're gonna laugh. My reading these days is like thought leadership or billionaire mafia romance. So it's like, now I'm thinking maybe I want to write that. It's something new. So, but they're all very close to being published. I want to try to get the Hollywood one into the Oscars and do maybe an LA signing tour or something like that.
And this is all before you speak at the $1 Billion Seller Summit in Iceland.
Yeah. That's right. It actually is. So wait for it. Yeah, I'm just
going to be 8 books on your chair when you walk into the room.
Hey, it's the end of the podcast. We could have gone on for another hour, and hopefully you can come back and do another Misfits podcast with us. But at the end of every podcast, we always ask our guests if they know another Misfit.
I can think of. I think I can, and the only reason I say that is because I haven't really met that person yet. So intelligence for me is somebody who can make you look at things very differently, and I haven't met sort of that top level person who's so radical. I know Misfits, but if I was going to recommend someone, I would want to recommend somebody really great. And I haven't come across that yet.
You just let us know when you do.
I will.
Perfect.
I would be honored to do that.
Well, thank you so much, Vandana, V. I just want to thank you, even though for the last 5 years, I can't pronounce your name. And I think I am. It's like but just thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was awesome.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you. So great seeing you guys. Kevin, I haven't seen you in a little while. But Coma. So it happens. Yeah, it was totally on a different journey. But
you're on a different journey for a while there. That's all right. We're glad.
Me too. Thank you so much, guys.
I'm glad you're back.
So good.
Better than ever.
Norm, I always love talking to you.
Oh, it's always great. And this information that you provided us today, your journey, everything that you're doing, I think so many people are going to get so much out of it. And once again, the event and the group, the organization that you're trying to put together, how do people get in contact with you for that?
So there's a link on the website. The website is thisiswhatshesaid.com. And they can do that, or they can get in touch with me via LinkedIn. That's the best way. Or Instagram too, but LinkedIn or the website are probably the better ones.
Perfect. And we'll have that available for everybody. All right, lady. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Loved it.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Kev, was that fantastic?
That was awesome. Good stuff. You never know what we're going to be talking about here on Marketing Misfits. And sometimes it goes into these areas that are just incredible and get you thinking in a totally different way. So sometimes it's an actual technique or a tactic. Other times it's how to think differently and how to be differently and how to apply that to your life and to your business. And this is great stuff today.
Yeah. So comes to an end.
That's right. But you know what? We'll have to do it again next week. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, share this with a friend. If you like this episode, hit the share this with a friend, text it to somebody, share it on social media. That always helps get the word out. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Every Tuesday, a brand new episode comes out with Norm, myself, and a lot of times, sometimes it's just Norm and me, just shooting the bull. Other times it's a great guest like we had today. So looking forward to seeing you again next time. And anything else you got to add, Mr. Farrar?
Marketingmisfits.co, not
That's
com.
right. That's right. Website, marketingmisfits.co, not .com.
All right, everybody. See you later.
Peace.